Everybody wants to be relevant. We want to be relevant personally. We want to be relevant in our organizations. And I've been thinking all day about this thought, well, what is it that causes irrelevance? How does somebody who was relevant become irrelevant? How does an organization or a business that was once relevant become irrelevant? And here's how it happens. When the speed of change around an organization is faster than the speed of change inside the organization becomes irrelevant.
Hey guys, so Mr. Purpose-Driven Life is going to tell us about how to become irrelevant. Let me explain to you guys how Rick Warren will become irrelevant. As brothers and sisters in Yeshua, wake up to the fact that these men are Freemasonic Luciferians who are teaching Kabbalah and charging you to learn the doctrine of the fallen angels. These men will become irrelevant.
I'm often asked, what surprised you about the book? And I said that I got to write it. I would have never imagined that. Not in my wildest dreams did I think, I don't even consider myself to be an author. And I'm often asked, why do you think so many people have read this? This thing's selling still about 1 million copies a month. And I think it's because spiritual emptiness is a universal disease. I think inside that at some point we put our heads down on the pillow and we go, there's got to be more to life than this. Get up in the morning, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed. Get up in the morning, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, go to parties on weekends. A lot of people say, I'm living. No, you're not living. That's just existing. Just existing. I really think that there's this inner desire. I do believe what Chris said. I believe that you're not an accident. Your parents may not have planned you, but I believe God did. I think they're accidental parents. There's no doubt about that. I don't think they're accidental kids. And I think you matter. I think you matter to God. I think you matter to history. I think you matter to this universe. And I think that the difference between what I call the survival level of living, the success level of living, and the significance level of living is, do you figure out what on earth am I here for? I meet a lot of people who are very smart and say, but why can't I figure out my problems? And I meet a lot of people who are very successful who say, why don't I feel more fulfilled? Why do I feel like a fake? Why do I feel like I've got to pretend that I'm more than I really am? I think that comes down.
So, Rick, this is why you feel like you are a fake. Because all you're doing is teaching people Kabbalism and pretending that you are a follower of the Yeshua of Jesus in the Bible. You are not. You're actually teaching the doctrine of the fallen angels.
Those are the four Kabbalistic worlds. And they have an exact counterpart in our own souls. Each of us are running around as that 4-story building. Our bodies are the lower floor here, okay? And that's called the Nephesh, or the animal soul. And we share that same part of our soul with all sentient beings. And it's the part of us that makes sure that it's the flight, make sure that we eat and have sex, but it's also a blind force. Okay? It needs to be controlled by something, and in human beings, the first thing that needs to control that is your intellect, and that's the next. part of our soul, okay, that corresponds to those mirrored angels in the Kabbalistic world. And that world's called the Ruach, and that's the mind's eye, that's our intelligence. When Grandma knows exactly what the Thanksgiving dinner is going to look like and smell like, and where everybody's going to sit, she's already got all of that in mind before Thanksgiving. She's working on her Ruach. Most of us don't even think that there's anything but our Ruach. Okay, our Ruach has sort of like barricaded itself in our projection room, okay, and is trying to make us think about everything and try to understand everything with our intellect. It's sort of embarrassed about our nefesh, which is like a black sheep in the family you don't talk about. But even the higher things, we try to explain to ourselves through this Ruach. Above the Ruach is a thing called the Neshama. And it's sort of an impossible word to translate, but it kind of means like soul intuition. And this is the level of consciousness and the part of our soul that, as mystics, we like to identify with. This is when a mother wakes up in the middle of the night and she knows that Johnny's in trouble. Johnny's just, I know Johnny's in trouble. It's been an accident or something. She wakes up. It doesn't even count as psychic phenomena anymore. We know it happens. It's a fact of life. Okay? Did Johnny send Mom a message, like a telegraph through the ether, that she picked up and translated, oh, Johnny's just telegraphing me psychically and tells me that he's in trouble? Nah. That's not the way it happens. Not only that, if Johnny would have been on the other side of the country when that happened, Mom would have picked it up just immediately. And if he'd have been on the moon, Johnny would have gotten that message to Mom, or Mom would have gotten the message. Okay? If Johnny would have been on Alpha Centauri or a million light years away, she would have still got it. And that's because Mom's neshama, that part of her soul, is so big. It has no spatial limitations at all. No matter how far Johnny goes, he'll never get out of Mom's neshama. Same thing with you, your neshama and my neshama. We're all walking around, bumping around in each other's neshama. This is why a magician can see a spirit in a triangle, literally see it, and it still be inside him. Because of the neshama, we may as well say there is no outside of ourselves, because even the things outside of ourselves are within our neshama. And just above the neshama, that part of our soul that is the reflection of that highest Kabbalistic world, where the male and female aspects of the is a part of our soul which we may as well just call the life force itself. And that's our true identity. It's like the highest Kabbalistic world is the only real world. The highest part of our soul is called Chai, spelled C-H-I-H. Almost like a chicken deck.
Okay, I'm sorry that I had to play that long clip, but this is channel Psalm 86, and I'm coming at you guys today to talk a little bit about, various things, psychology, Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and Rick Warren. But I'm starting out, the only reason I played that long clip for you is that's the best analogy I have found that talks about the 4 levels of the soul that the Kabbalists believe, which is a belief that impressed Sigmund Freud. Psychology technically really didn't start till Sigmund Freud. He's the father of it. And it's documented, and I'll show you here momentarily, and I will put a link to Torah Cafe, I think it is, and evidently she claims to be a distant cousin of Sigmund Freud. Her name is Aiden something. It's a paper she wrote, and I think you can get the paper online if I'm not mistaken. My researcher friend, I believe contacted her, and he got the transcript of it of this lecture in her paper. He contacted her, she sent it to him, but she gives a lecture basically talking about how Freud was influenced by Kabbalah. And specifically, she goes into some of these characteristics, the animal soul, etc., in this talk. And basically, that's one reason why I showed this clip, was so you guys could see what she talks about when I put the link, which I don't want to make this video super long. I'm trying to condense my videos, and I really want you guys to do your own research. I don't want you guys to take my word for stuff. I want you guys to investigate what I say. So that's why I'm going to put the link to this woman's talk underneath the video to Torah Cafe. And she talks about this. Right here, and I'll put this link underneath the video too. A quote by Freud himself, "This is gold." And I'll start right here. Apparently, Bloch had some understanding of the psychological significance of Cheyenne Vital's work because he decided to approach his acquaintance Sigmund Freud. Freud agreed to read the manuscript, and upon doing so, explained to Bloch, "This is gold," and wondered aloud why Cheyenne Vital's work had never been brought to his attention in the past. Actually, I think I went down too far. Further up is where he talks about, it says, David Bach, in the paperback edition of his work, Sigmund Freud and the Jewish Mystical Tradition, relates a story which I believe bears repeating. It's a fascinating story. I'm not sure if it's true, but even as an apocryphal tale, it should command our attention. And it's about a rabbi named Cheyenne and two rabbis by the name of Bloch, Bachim, and Sigmund Freud. And it's basically about how Sigmund Freud, came across his interest of Kabbalah. This is only one article. There's several other articles. All you have to do technically, and this is from a Kabbalistic site. This is not from some run-of-the-mill site. As a matter of fact, Kabbalah and psychotherapy, which psychotherapy is basically invented again by Sigmund Freud. More proof of Freud's link to Kabbalah. Again, coupled with the lecture of the link underneath this video you are watching right now of a gal, I believe it's her thesis. So, thesis, it's not run-of-the-mill research. She's giving a lecture in front of people. So it's undeniable that Sigmund Freud had roots. Sigmund Freud's psychology, rather, has very deep roots in Kabbalah, especially when she explains his belief. I don't know if it'll pop up. In the 4 levels of the soul, which is significant to the 4 dimensions of Kabbalah. Another person who I know he worked with, Sigmund Freud, that again had a adoration of Kabbalah, is Carl Jung. Here's another link. I'm not going to get into it too much, but again, very, very, very fascinated with Kabbalah, with the Zohar and the Torah and whatnot. And here is, I'll just read a link. Jung does not appear to have any in-depth knowledge of the original text of Kabbalah, while Mysterium Cognitius includes citations to the Sperling in Simon English translation of the Zohar, first published in 1931 to 1934, as well as the German translation of the Zohar by Ernest Müller. The majority of Jung's specific citations to Kabbalistic symbols and ideas are to the writings of Nor von Rosenroth, whose Kabbalah Diunata, published in 1648 as a Latin translation of passages from the Torah. Other Kabbalistic writings and essays on the meaning of the Kabbalah, Sholem 1974, Nor's work was the most important non-Hebrew reference on the Kabbalah up until the close of the 19th century and was the major source of the Kabbalah for non-Jewish scholars, at least up to that time. Further down, Young had visions inspired by the symbolism of the Kabbalist Moses Cordovero, and Cordovero's Pardes Rimignon is cited in the bibliography of Mysterium Conitonius. I'm sorry, I'm butchering all these words. But the actual reference is in a single footnote, and this is cited through Noor Young, 1963, page 22. While Young was clearly aware of the writings of Gershom Scholem, he appears to have not read them closely prior to 1954. Otherwise, he would have undoubtedly been familiar with certain doctrines of the Luria Kabbalah, such as the breaking of the vessels and Tikkun prior to the date he acknowledges in his letter to Evans in February of that year. I could go on. Again, I'm trying to save some time, but I think you guys get the gist here. It's pretty obvious this guy was an occultist. He was into the occult. And and I'll talk about this in my next video that I am hopefully going to put out within the week. I'm still doing research on it about the quote-unquote hidden Sephiroth, which is called the Klepoth. And that's more that a lot of the people in the dark arts focus on. But honestly, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. But in the middle of this Klepoth is a hidden Sephiroth, or a hidden circle, whatever you want to call it, called the Doth. And the Hebrew, I know, and I'm not going to say because I don't know how to spell Hebrew, but I know that some Hebrew people write it the way they write it in English is DA'At, and then others write it DAATH, Doth. And what I have deduced, because a lot of this having to go through this Doth, they believe is what destroys the ego. So it's like facing your fears, facing yourself. After that, you come out enlightened. I know that, like, Aleister Crowley claims to have met some demon in it, and apparently some of these other magicians have claimed to met some demon in it. That I don't know. But and I think that's what, I think, honestly, as I'm doing research, I think they do some of this stuff to scare people. And it is rightly so. It should be something that should be feared in the regards to your opening something of the unknown. You're dealing with spirits and whatnot. But, somebody like this guy, Lon Milo Duquette, even though he doesn't talk in an enormous aloud about it, he has it written in his books. He doesn't talk about it enormously. He does, but just I haven't found any videos of him talking about it. But I have downloaded a couple of his books recently, and I've been browsing through them. And his references to Crowley, because he took over actually the OTO, that occult group, whatever you want to call it, that cult, that Aleister Crowley founded. And I've listened, he sounds like a really nice guy. I'm not saying he is when I say this. He's like like 2 Corinthians chapter 11, one of Satan's minions disguised as an angel of light. You know what I mean? And that's what makes, to me, that's what's scarier than all this boogeyman demonic stuff, because that's what deceives people. Really, at the end of the day, the Bible says that the man of lawlessness is going to deceive people by the means of peace. He's not going to come out as the boogeyman, and that's why we need to really, a lot of this stuff that sounds good, but yet it's got these hooks of error, major hooks of error, even though they may be small in some areas. Some of them are bigger hooks. It doesn't matter. It just, like Paul said, the Apostle Paul said, it only takes a little leaven to leaven the whole lump. A lot of times, without me sounding pessimistic or cynical, you kind of have to look for some of this quote unquote good stuff and these people that are talking so nice, like this Lon Milo Duquette man. Again, he seems like a nice guy. I heard a whole teaching this morning about his talk on his when he read his writings on Aleister Crowley, who basically studied deep into the Kabbalah, but he focused a lot on the Qilpoth, or Klepoth, and wanted to kind of go through that abyss. Another word for the Doth is the abyss, or whatever, to come out through the top to reach enlightenment. but he painted it pretty scary, or some of the people, painted him pretty scary, which I think Aleister Crowley is scary personally. But, this man comes out saying, oh no, if you're going to study magic, you're going to have to study his writings anyway, and how he was scared to study his writings because he had heard all these terrible things. And when he read his writings, he wasn't that bad, blah, blah, blah. It's all bad. But again, I'm not saying that that one is worse than the other. It's all bad. It's all evil. It's all of the devil. But what I'm saying is a lot of times this niceness and this, is a lot more deceptive than the evil, But my point is I came across a video, and I'm not going to play it for sake of time, but I had to laugh out loud, literally, LOL. About it was like maybe a 3-minute video about what Kabbalah is, and it said, and at first it said what Kabbalah isn't, and then one of the first words is occult, and then it listed all these names that Kabbalah quote unquote isn't, and then when they went into describing what Kabbalah is, they said that it's these secrets that only a few people knew, and it's just like, well, that's the definition of occult, is hidden. So hello, it's like they're even being deceptive in its meaning. It's so deceptive. Anyhow, moving along, I found this, and there is a guy, and I don't remember his name. If you go to My Word Like Fire blog on WordPress, the man who heads it up, I've interacted with him before. He's a very nice man, John Lanigan. He knows a guy that heads up a page on Blogspot where he researches and exposes Rick Warren's Celebrate Recovery. And he used to have some PDFs, and they're gone. I've looked on there, and I should probably contact the man myself, but it's been a couple years ago that I remember reading through the PDFs. And he had some really awesome PDFs about Rick Warren's strong adoration of Carl Jung's work, strong adoration of Carl, and how he really put a lot of the principles, not just of quote unquote AA, which is very occult based. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that blog, My Word Like Fire, John Lanigan has a lot of very excellent research that he has done and compiled on that blog about AA and its occultic roots. But not only is Celebrate Recovery rooted in AA, but it has a lot of psychology type roots too. But they throw the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes in the mix. They totally twist it, and they twist it so good it almost sounds right. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this. I believe I have. I've told you guys practically my whole story, my whole life story in my videos. But I did do Celebrate Recovery when I was still in the charismatic movement. I went for like maybe 2 months, and I got absolutely nothing out of it. And maybe I should have stayed to see what. But at the time I was deceived myself in the charismatic movement, so it's a good thing that I didn't stay. But I look back and I think I wish I didn't throw all those booklets away, because they gave you like a booklet and a bunch of different stuff. But I remember being there for 2 months, and it was just depressing. It was like, I felt like it was like a session, and everybody was there given. It was depressing. I mean, sometimes people talking about their pain and all the stuff they've been through, and I'm not saying that that's not necessarily that's a bad thing to be transparent and talk about your pain and stuff to someone, but there was no talk of Jesus, no talk of a solution. And if I remember, we got into the book some, but again, we're talking 2011. I don't remember, but I do strongly remember that they incorporated the Beatitudes in with it. But I always found it very, very strange, even then, even though I was deceived in the charismatic movement, that they used to claim it was so freeing, and how, that people got so free doing it, but yet they kept going back. And it's just like, well, if it's so free and if it works, why do you keep going back year after year after year? It just didn't make any sense to me. Anyway, moving along, and I'll put this link underneath the video. It charts, and it's too much to read. So that's why I want you guys, to go into this link and read yourself. But it talks about the general background of Jung compared to the Bible and compared to Galen of Perginum, and he doesn't really put too much, the writer who did this, of the Kabbalah stuff in it. A lot of people, either they don't put the Kabbalah link with it, or they just don't know, or I don't know. But further down, right here, the belief in paganism and the occult, and as I read here a minute ago, this man had visions and all kinds of stuff. You know, it's a known thing. He was an occultist. Their view of Christianity, right here, they document that, this writer does. And right here, the Saddleback response, pay no attention to man behind the curtain. Shape is originated by Pastor Rick Warren, our senior pastor, not Carl Young. There are no connections between the two, and there is absolutely no reason to try to connect them. That's what one of the representatives said. James Sundquist, who apparently, I think he's in one of the videos. There's a couple videos he has on YouTube where he was one of the first people to actually notice Rick Warren's occulticness. You know, the fact that the man is a heretic. But here is some of the connection. Their connection on personality theory right here, and then you got the Bible, you know, to refute both these positions. Their connection on a mutual belief in the unconscious right here. Their connection on unconscious metaphor and images right here. Their connection on using Jungian terminology right here. Their connection on the 4 temperaments right here. And on and on. I mean, on and on. So that leads me to my last point, and I want to read an excerpt before I get to the clips of Rick Warren. And before I get to the clips, I really want to remind you guys, you know, if you guys do your own research. But one of the things that I wanted you guys to research, and you know, and perhaps I could show more videos, but you know, the thing, I don't want to cause anybody to stumble. So it's kind of like a catch-22 when I ask you guys to research, because I think that I would think that you guys would pray before you would research. Thus, if the Holy Spirit doesn't want you to look at something, I think, you know, I would hope that all of you, or most of you, would heed to the conviction of the Holy Spirit and stop. I don't want to cause anybody to stumble by putting a bunch of occultists, because really, at the end of the day, sometimes to research this stuff, you have to look into the occultists, like this guy. I mean, Lon Milo Duquette, he's an occultist. He is a student of Aleister Crowley's teachings, you know. But the clips that I'm going to show after I read this goes along with the clips. I'm showing a clip from Rick Warren's TED series, and I'm showing a clip of right after that of a narrator who's talking about Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist book, which is an occultic New Age book. I know Oprah was real big on it. And he talks about Aleister Crowley and how he had picked up on the similarity to Coelho's book, and how the purpose, this guy, the story of the story of the person that is written about in The Alchemist, it was his whole thing was about his purpose, and how the teachings of Aleister Crowley is really about your purpose, finding your purpose in life and whatnot, you know, and at whatever cost, fulfilling that purpose. And then, you know, the clip that I will play first before that is Rick Warren. He's talking about purpose. So keep that in mind, and let me read this to you right quick. And this is from an excerpt from a book I have. Tikkun Olam, The Spiritual Purpose of Life. Isaac Luria, the renowned 16th century Kabbalist, used the phrase Tikkun Olam, usually translated as preparing the world, to encapsulate the true role of humanity in ongoing evolution and spiritualization of the cosmos. Luria taught that God created the world by forming vessels of light to hold the divine light. But as God poured the light into the vessels, they catastrophically shattered, tumbling down toward the realm of matter. Thus, our world consists of countless shards of the original vessels entrapping sparks of the divine light. Humanity's greatest task involves helping God by freeing and reuniting the shattered light, raising the sparks back to divinity, and restoring the broken world. We meet similar concepts in other religions. Christ promised to return with the coming of the kingdom of God and exhorted people to prepare through love, wakefulness, and charity. In Buddhism, the Buddhasvata vows to forego final liberation until all beings have gone freed from suffering. The Gnostics held that a spark of divinity resides entrapped within the soul of humans. Tikkun Olam encompasses both the outer and the inner, both service to society by helping those in need and service to the divine by liberating the spark within. As we are, the divine spark lies hidden beneath our layers of egoistic self-centeredness. That spark is our conscience, through which the promoting of the divine will flow toward us by pursuing spiritual inner work to strengthen our soul and purify our heart. We grow more able to bear that spark without shattering, more willing to act on what we know to be right, less willing to act in harmful or grasping ways, and more able to notice the quiet presence of consciousness beneath the din of our shattering minds and reactive emotions. The work of transformation of building a soul creates a proper vessel for the divine spark, for our unique share of the divine will, returning that spark to the service of the one who made it. By working to perfect ourselves, perfect our soul, and serve society, we can contribute in our own unique way to the perfecting of the world. This is our duty and our calling as human beings. To contemplate and enter the process of Tikkun Olam, preparing or perfecting the world, we need to understand the concept of the world. All the major religious traditions present a hierarchy of worlds or levels of beings, from the one we ordinarily inhabit to the ultimate world of divinity. The basic principle of Kabbalah is that the seeker pursues spiritual practice to transform his or her being and rise through the levels of the worlds to bring his or own will back to divine will, while opening a way for the higher energies to flow down to this world and thereby advancing the great process of Tikkun Olam. For millennia, Kabbalists have sought to serve this process by example by meditating on and opening to the higher energy, to divine light, the light of Shekinah above their head. They allow the light to spread through them as if sitting in its midst, and draw the light down from the earth for life, for its soul. The possibility of opening to the divine light stands within all of us if we are prepared to do the necessary inner works. Tikkun Olam places our spiritual practice at the heart of the epic unfolding history of the universe, the evolution and spiritualization of the whole creation. With each small act of kindness, with each small moment of presence and practice, with each effort to see, cleanse, and integrate our inner life, with each heartfelt prayer, opening to the higher energies and the higher will, we build a new world and serve the divine architect of meaning. Rather than Tikkun Olam as a return to the perfection, rather than view Tikkun Olam as a return to the perfection that existed before God created the universe, we consider the spiritualizing action as reaching toward a new and greater perception that existed before, toward perfecting this flawed world by imbuing the whole of it with divine spirits. Because of the freedom God necessarily placed into the world, we can infer that the outcome of the whole process truly remains uncertain, that our free choice to serve the divine and our planet through fulfilling our highest destiny really matters, our purpose, that despite our significant size with respect to the universe, our personal inner work makes a difference. If we can raise ourselves to the station where the divine can see and act through us, then we complete the momentous work of restoring at least one part of the whole. And so with the great Kabbalist, we discover a vision of unbounding meaning, perfecting ourselves, our purpose, perfecting the world, and helping God. That doesn't sound very, very eerily similar to what you're about to hear Rick Warren say, and then Aleister Crowley say. That, I mean, it's all Kabbalistic. It does not take a rocket scientist to put the pieces together. all this stuff, very Kabbalistic. I focus a lot on the NAR. I've not talked a lot at length about Rick Warren, but here's just one one more piece of the puzzle of how it's all connected. How all these heresies, they're all connected. They all have a Kabbalistic underlining. Until next time, you guys, God bless you guys, and you guys take care.
Last year, I was invited to speak at NBA All-Stars game. And so I'm talking to the players, and because most of the NBA teams, NFL teams, and all the other teams have done this 40 Days of Purpose based on the book. And I asked them, I said, what's in your hand? So what's in your hand? I said, it's a basketball. And that basketball represents your identity, who you are. You're an NBA player. It represents your income. You're making a lot of money off that little ball. And it represents your influence. And even though you're only going to be in the NBA for a few years, you're going to be an NBA player the rest of your life. And that gives with you enormous influence. So what are you going to do with what you've been given? And I guess that's the main reason I came up here today to all of you very bright people at TED, is to say, what's in your hand? What do you have that you've been given? Talent, background, education, freedom, networks, opportunities, wealth, ideas, creativity. What are you doing with what you've been given? That to me is the primary question about life. That to me is what being purpose-driven is all about. In the book, I talk about how you're wired to do certain things. You're shaped with little acrostics, spiritual gifts, heart, ability, personality, and experiences. These things shape you. And if you want to know what you ought to be doing with your life, you need to look at your shape. What am I wired to do? Why would God wire you to do something and then have you do it? If you're wired to be an anthropologist, you be an anthropologist. If you're wired to be an underseas explorer, you be an underseas explorer. If you're wired to make deals, you make deals. If you're wired to paint, you paint. Did you know that God smiles when you be you? When my kids are little, they're all grown now, I have grandkids. I used to go in and sit on the side of their bed, and I used to watch my kids sleep. And I just watched their little bodies rise and lower, rise and lower. I would look at them and go, this is not an accident. Rise and lower. And I got joy out of just watching them sleep. Some people have the misguided idea that God only gets excited when you're doing, quote, spiritual things like going to church or helping the poor or, confessing or doing something like that. The bottom line is God gets pleasure watching you be you. Why? He made you. And when you do what you were made to do, he goes, that's my boy. That's my girl. You're using the talent and the ability that I gave you. So my advice to you is look at what's in your hand, your identity, your influence, your income, and say, it's not about me. It's about making the world a better place. Thank you.
The book itself has an overall message and theme about this boy, or man, I should say, maybe. It's a man named Santiago. He's pursuing what the author calls his personal legend. Now, another phrase for personal legend is true will. Santiago is pursuing his true will, his purpose for being on this planet. It's the same concept of the personal legend where the universe helps you conspire to achieve what you're destined to.
Okay, remember that snake. We're going to come back to it, the snake in the circle, and the legend.
His main axiom is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And what he's talking about isn't just, going into any kind of debauchery that you feel is fun or whatever. He's talking about a more deeper meaning. Crowley was talking about Thelema, which is the name of the religion he came up with. Thelema literally translates as the will.
Crowley heard heard an unearthly voice from over his left shoulder. For 1 hour, at precisely the same time over the next 3 days, Crowley said that the voice dictated to him the book of the law, the work that would become the Bible of his new religion.
The book of the law, it just really is ripping up everything. It's ripping up the Bible, it's ripping up the Quran, it's ripping up all the holy books and saying, we're starting fresh now. This is the word of the new eon. We're going to peck out the eyes of Christ on the cross. It's very, very blasphemous. It's all about liberation. It's all about having no restrictions at all. You follow your path, you follow your goal in life, and you do that above all else.
When Crowley talked about do what thou wilt, he was saying you're supposed to find your purpose for being in this world and pursue it at any and all costs, because the universe will conspire to help you do that, which is literally identical to what we find in The Alchemist with Santiago pursuing his personal legend.
Okay, so first, I want to thank Psalm 86, who made the video that we just watched, most of it. She retired from YouTube about 8 years ago, so people don't have access to her old research. She was in the NAR, figured out what was going on in the NAR, connected it all back to the Kabbalah, and she's been the source for a ton of my research. So, thank you, Psalm 86, wherever you're at, because you're helping a ton. Now, remember the snake that was on the front of that book that was eating its own tail, and the whole thing was about legend right there. Hold on one second. Okay. So, Kobe Bryant, the black mamba, the snake. His mamba snake looks a little bit different, right? A little bit. So, here's the Mamba Academy. This is an actual location. That's the logo for it, okay? Remember the snake and legend. Actually, these are all the Mamba logos for his Nike shoes, so that you can tell the black mamba, it has to do with that triangle and the snake. People can understand that when Kobe Bryant was number 8 to begin with, then he became, he was number 24 to begin with, then he became number 8. So somebody has identified the magic that Kobe's doing, and they are making their own graphic tees and selling them because they understand what this magic is that he's doing. Mamba's mentality is that he's doing one-eyed symbolism, right? And he's behind a chain link fence. We still got to get to the legend, because remember how Kobe died? Legend, twice. Hold on.
Oh, shit! It's Kobe Bryant!
Help me.
Just pass me the trophies and we'll pull you out.
Pass?
Shit! It's Kobe Bryant!
Help me.
Just pass me the trophies and we'll pull you out.
Pass. These were Shaq's.
You guys see this? Somebody predicted in November 13th of 2012 that Kobe was going to end up dying in a helicopter crash. The guy's face looks a little like Kobe's. 199,000 likes on that post. Who is this guy that he gets 199,000 likes on a post about saying that Kobe is going to die in a helicopter crash on Twitter? It's predictive programming, you guys.